All right. The season 4 teaser trailer for Jujutsu Kaisen just dropped yesterday. So, this is going to be a guided exploration from the perspective of a manga reader. So, there will be spoilers ahead, but let's just dive right into it. And this teaser trailer opens up with the image of Kenjaku floating above the trench, the Japan trench that he lowers the prison realm that Gojo Satoru is in down into the I believe he says 8,000 meters, and it is in the subduction zone. So what's really cool about this is that this image of the trench doesn't actually show up until chapter 221 in the manga, the chapter that Gojo is unsealed and shows up in front of Kenjaku right after getting free of the prison realm. So this may or may not be kind of an indication of how far season 4 or the Culling Game part 2 is going to actually run. The first half or part 1 was it covered about 42 chapters, and if you apply pretty much the same math to part 2, that gets us to chapter 222, which is the chapter after Gojo's release and just before the official beginning of the Gojo and Sukuna fight, which I don't think any of us are expecting that it's going to get into that for this season. So I do believe it's probably going to end at 222. So after a sealing, we go back, we set the date for the fight and go train. And then we get that time skip during 222. And we have the send off for Gojo into the ultimate fight against Sukuna. So that's my assumption. I'd love to hear from you guys what you kind of think. But showing us this image, I just thought it was interesting because that gives us an indication of how far part 2 or season 4 is going to go. And then we're hit with just like a montage of basically recapping the important moments from season 3 or the part 1 of the Culling Games, which was just peak after peak. So obviously all of you here have seen it, you know what's going on. And then the very first new image we get is of Kenjaku and his Kogane, because you can see the stitches on its forehead. And it's the moment that Kenjaku is basically twisting the rules to be able to add multiple different rules to the Culling Game to end it, because he now has Tengen in his possession at this point, because he is in the Holy Mountain of Hida, I believe is what it's called. It's one of the 4 locations where the main pure barriers that Tengen has created to assist jujutsu throughout the country and suppress cursed spirits. This is one of the locations of the 4, and he is here. Basically, he's able to threaten the Kogane that because he wants to end the games. So he says here in the trailer, like, add a rule to end the Culling Games. So this is already post fight with Yuki and Choso and Tengen, and he's acquired Tengen as a cursed spirit. So that's really interesting too, because that gives us another glimpse into how far the season is going to go. Because I believe this is in chapter 219 that is covered. It's either 219 or 220. So like I said, I'm fairly certain we are going to see Gojo get unsealed, but then obviously I don't think we're getting into that fight. Now, whether they choose to go for like a movie or a season for the Gojo versus Sukuna fight, we don't really know, but regardless, this part is very cool because then they go on to find the mummified corpse of Sukuna from the Heian era, which then they take back to him as a souvenir or as a gift. But this is how Kenjaku was able to create the Culling Games, was that he enforced an unrealistic binding vow on himself to end a never ending game. And Tengen was the key because if he wields Tengen through cursed energy or cursed spirit manipulation, he can get Tengen to take down all of their pure barriers, which will then end the Culling Games because they are built off of Tengen's pure barriers. So he, of course, finds his loophole to the situation. And then that's where he makes the stipulation that the Culling Games will end when only Megami Fushiguro and Suguru Geto are the only players alive. So himself and Sukuna. But that's enough on that part because then we get our first glimpse at Kashimo versus Hakari. Hakari dropping in from the sky in jackpot after Kashimo just absolutely obliterated Panda. So, and we get to see the color of Hakari's infinite cursed energy in jackpot form. Now, his hair is not purple like some people wanted or speculated for when he goes into jackpot. But, and that is a little sad because I thought that would have been a really cool touch for jackpot. But you can see that there is added like rainbow kind of cursed energy added to the normal, that like light blue green cursed energy. So, and it like kind of sparkles. So it clearly does have a different visual representation, but it's not, the purple or green that people may have been hoping for. But I think it looks fantastic. We got him coming in, crashing, destroying the container, like the shipping container that he lands on. And this is where we then get another small little image, but I think is really cool because it's when Hakari begins to fight against Kashimo, and Kashimo realizes that his unique cursed energy trait through the electricity doesn't work on Hakari. And that's purely just because of the amount of cursed energy that Hakari has during jackpot. It basically nullifies the added effect of the electrical shock. So just pretty much doesn't even bother him. We see that, then we get some absolutely gorgeous panels of Kashimo's like lightning going off through the shipping yard. And then we've got Hakari hitting the Idle Death Gamble domain expansion, seeing that for the very first time. And a cool detail here is because he's actually missing. We know exactly when this was. This is his first domain that he casts against Kashimo in their fight because he enters the fight already in jackpot from his fight with Charles. Then this is after he runs out the first time, he hits it. And we know that because he still has his Jujutsu high jacket on, but he is missing the left arm because that's the left arm that gets blown off from Kashimo's sure hit lightning attack previously while they were fighting it out. So obviously his arm grew back right away, but his clothes didn't magically regrow, which is like an anime thing that happens all the time. And it's something that even happens in the Gojo versus Sukuna fight in the manga. Their clothes just like regenerate, especially Gojo's after getting out of Malevolent Shrine. But I digress. Very cool seeing all of the subway station doors go by, the colors, the pachinko imagery popping up. And then we get this incredible shot of Kashimo where he's like, hey, don't get me too excited now. And he's just getting turned up. The purple lightning looks amazing. Then we see him and Hakari just clash in an epic, anime punch, lightning flying everywhere, shockwaves. Needless to say, just from this very short teaser trailer, the visuals look absolutely incredible as It always does, and as Jujutsu Kaisen fans, I think we just have to realize how blessed we are to have this sort of consistent treatment of this series. So I constantly just am in awe of what we get to receive. So I like to show some gratitude on top of it. Get a quick image of, I believe his name is Shino. It is the old man from the Kamo clan. So post Shibuya, Noritoshi goes back to the Kamo clan to basically come up with some countermeasures against Kenjaku, but Kenjaku's already there, and he is now the current head of the Kamo clan. And Shino's the old dude there. So they threw him in there looking ominous. You know, he doesn't really do anything outside of that one interaction in the series when Noritoshi gets pretty much exiled from the Kamo clan. And then that's when he ends up going to Sakurajima colony, which then that's where we see him with his updated short haircut. He cut his hair after basically being exiled from his clan. And we get a super quick snippet of, you don't actually get to see Cursed Spirit Naoya, but you get the aftershocks of when he like builds up his speed and I believe first attacks Maki and just Noritoshi doesn't even see Naoya's movements. That's how fast he is. And you can just see the holes throughout all the walls. We get some really cool images of Maki here, either slaying some cursed spirits, but then we can see her face being grabbed, which that is after Cursed Spirit Naoya enters the Sakurajima colony and first attacks her after she was right next to Noritoshi. So that's like a subsequent shot. Then we get a very, very quick glimpse of the Kogane, and it's after all of the soldiers begin to infiltrate the colonies due to Kenjaku's manipulation of foreign military to bring in a bunch of non-sorcerers to use them as basically fodder for cursed energy so that it could stimulate all the colonies regardless of the levels of the players in them so that the preparations for the merger would be complete. So we see that number skyrocketing. Then we get our first glimpses of the Yuki Choso Tengen versus Kenjaku fight in the Sunyata barrier, which looks incredible. We're going to get to see Yuki use Bambaye for the very first time. Obviously, it is her very first time fighting in the manga as well. So I'm incredibly excited to see it. We obviously know where it heads. We know what happens, but it does not deter my excitement in the slightest because I think she is awesome. Her curse technique is really cool. I would have loved to see, maybe some extension techniques out of her or, just seeing her on screen more. But at the end of the day, Gege had a very specific idea in mind for what he wanted to do with Yuki and her character. And we know with Gege, if you are not integral to the main plot going forward, there's a good chance you are either you're just not safe. Either you're not going to remain in the story because you're not just not pivotal to moving forward, or you're going to get killed off. That's just how Gege moves. We continue. We're seeing, images of Choso fighting against Kenjaku in their initial bout. And I just stopped on this image here that I love because it's Kenjaku dodging a piercing blood from Choso, and his eyes and his expression are so bored. He's so over it. He doesn't care even in a minute way about Choso. And we know that he expressly states that, but this move, Kenjaku is completely unbothered by it. if anything, he's annoyed because Choso's even trying. But hey, we got to give it to Big Bro Choso because he did his job. He got Kenjaku to reveal another one of his curse techniques because at the end of the day, Kenjaku didn't take Choso seriously enough. Because we know if he would have brought out like multiple special grade curse spirits, Choso was cooked. But he decided to show Choso that he could defeat a grade 1 sorcerer like himself just using low level curse spirits in reinforced with his cursed energy. And he does obliterate Choso, but you know, our best big bro fights through it and he gets him to reveal the gravity curse technique from Iori or Kaori Itadori. So I loved seeing Kenjaku here. You know, we get to see him flying around on his cursed spirit, fighting. We get a cool shot of Japan with all of the different culling game barriers. It's all red, like it's being activated. To me, it signifies the preparation is complete. The amount of cursed energy has been achieved. The merger is now set to occur, and then they just have to fulfill the conditions of ending the game by only Sukuna and Kenjaku being left alive at this point. And then that is what heads us into the Shinjuku Showdown. Now, this is where we get the shift in this teaser trailer from kind of hype excitement to the absolute dread in ominous trajectory that the story is going to take. Because now we see Megami and he says, "Who are you?" So we all know what is happening here. This is after they bring Sumiki in. They give her the points to allow her to exit the game. And then it is revealed to us that it is not Sumiki and it is Yorozu. Yorozu is a reincarnated sorcerer in Sumiki's body. She takes the points, uses them, and then says toodaloo and just flies off after completely crushing Megami. But then we see Megami hit the pose. And we all know what that pose, it's for Big Raga. And just for this part in the trailer, I am wearing my Maharaga hoodie here. You can't really see, but I got some of the like wings on the hood and his necklace part right here. Anyways, sorry. I just think it's cool. The 10 Shadows is my favorite curse technique in the series, so I got to represent. But we know that this is after Sukuna pops out. He finally uses Enchain, or like they say in this trailer, extension. And Megami immediately is going for Maharaga, which honestly, I don't blame Megami in the slightest. That is your only option at this point. But we know how that goes. Sukuna cancels out the hand signs, stops his chant, feeds him the finger, and well, the rest is history. But it is very cool because they gave us a little detail here of then when we see Megami's face, not only is the expression on his face just haunting because of what he is witnessing after he just saw his sister, his main reason for being a sorcerer and everything in the Culling Games. He then sees her who has been taken over and she flies off. And then boom, out comes Sukuna in Yuji. And we see the reflection in Megami's eyes. You can see Itadori standing there, but you can tell by the posture, and they kind of use this white line effect over the face. So you can't see the face, but it's clearly right after Sukuna comes out. And then dispatches or knocks unconscious Hana and Angel. And then before he's about to turn his direction on Megami here. So amazing detail. It's going to be an insane moment. We get a beautiful image of Yuji breaking out of Urame's ice. So they use Frost Calm. This is during the Yuji and Maki versus Meguna fight. She comes in and uses the Frost Calm. She doesn't destroy Yuji's body because just in case Sukuna has any other plans for it. But Sukuna says, like, he doesn't matter anymore. And then we get the shot of Yuji down on the ground. This is after Sukuna transfers into Megumi's body, delivers one of the nastiest gut punches I've ever seen in manga. There was so much hate and disdain, and you could tell enjoyment from Sukuna delivering that blow to Yuji's midsection and sending him across the whole city. But this is after he receives that punch and he's coming back and he's actually seeing Hana, an angel, falling from the skyscraper after Sukuna, has lunch, has lunch from them. And it's just, you can see Yuji here is just absolutely shattered. He's shattered. He can't believe what's actually happening. And this heads into just some amazing moments. But then this is where we just get the Jujutsu Kaisen, the Culling Game Part 2. And it ends, of course, with a very ominous, and this is more so for anime onlys, because from just the images we see prior, we already have, as manga readers, we already have all the context that of what is going to occur. But then for anime onlys, I love how they did this. They have Sukuna basically rehashing the vow, the binding vow, the pact that he formed with Yuji all the way back after his death in the detention center. And it's, when I chant extension, I'll gain control over your body for 1 minute. And the second condition is you will forget this promise. And that's where they end it. Sukuna has a little smile on his face, chilling inside of his innate domain. And that is the end of the teaser trailer. Now, it just says diligently in production. It does not give us a date. I am hopeful that we will see it early 2027. They obviously have a fair amount of production already completed. I'm assuming they may not have even stopped in between part 1 and part 2 with production wise. So I'm not expecting it this year. I don't think anybody is, but my hope is either early 2027 or maybe summer of 2027. So that is going to be it for the exploration for this teaser trailer. It was amazing, and I'd love to hear what you guys thought about it. If there was any other little tidbits that I missed, please, let me know. Where do you think season 4 is going to end? And yeah, it's just a great time to be a JJK fan. So I appreciate you if you've made it this far, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.